this is a third part in a three-part series that's kind of going to keep rolling. But today's the bridge. Today's a bridge from the old how-to into starting to talk about doctrine, and we're going to transition from setting the table to eating the meal. Um, we go from how to choose a Bible to how to understand the Bible to how to study. And the point was to give everybody these tips, but also because we're switching from Torah portion, we got a bunch of new people to just let everybody know where I'm coming from. Because you want to know, what's the guy up here talking about? Where, what is your angle? What is your point of view? Where are you coming from? How, right? And that's part of today is evaluating sources, evaluating source material. How are you, how do you go about things? Yeah. Um, the bridge is working into the commandment against having other gods. That's what we're going to get. It's going to take a really long time. And if anybody says they see what's coming, I will call them out because the way I'm going to talk about this, I don't think anybody has ever seen coming. You're going to want to stay tuned for that because I almost guarantee you do not see where I'm coming with this. And here's the first thing is a disclaimer. Look at that. I have a shelf here. You do not have to go this far in your walk, in your study. You don't have to. This is for people who just get the bug. And that's most of us in this walk. Most of us in this walk are people who were in the Sunday system or who were in no system and read the Bible and said, wait a minute, traditional Christianity doesn't look like this at all. And so we got the bug to study. But if you're in this walk and you are keeping the commandments and you're keeping the Sabbath, you adopted the diet, you're keeping the holy days, and you're comfortable in your faith, but you want to serve in other ways and you want to spend your time in serving the kids, serving meals, being creative in other ways with music ministry, with dance and stuff like that, that's just fine. Not everybody has to be teachers. In fact, it's not even supposed to be that way. That's a misnomer of mainstream Christianity as well. But you do need to be prepared enough to spot false teachers, to spot false teachings, and to know why it is you do what you do. Because you don't want people to be robots who are just going through the motions and doing stuff. But there's no requirement for everybody to be treaters like this. Now, today's video is a really fun one, okay? Today's video that I have to set up before we go is Caitlin Ohashi. Does anybody in the room know who Caitlin Ohashi is?
No.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I never heard of her.
Okay. So Caitlin Ohashi is a gymnast that you've never heard of, who is of the same caliber and age of Simone Biles and Aly Raisman and all the people that you have heard of. If you've heard of gymnastics, okay. Simone Biles is the one that is basically the Michael Jordan of gymnastics. That's at the champion right now. Simone Biles is totally current gymnast. And this young lady, well, she's just a lady now, but here she has perfected the floor routine. She did a perfect 10 floor routine and she repeated it as a UCLA Bruin. And I'm going to show you the tail end of it. I can't show you a lot of this because it's so copyright protected, it would just shut us down, right? It would shut our stream down. All the music is copywritten. I've had to pull the music out and just show you the tail end of it. And she went collegiate instead of Olympic. She was on the Olympic path, but she got hurt and she was the entire life of what it takes to be there had emotionally broken her. So she had to stop doing that. And instead she went to college where she perfected it because she was finally in an atmosphere where it was fun. So Caitlin is an outstanding athlete and she perfected this routine. And I really hope that you guys, Caitlin, Katelyn, Ohashi, OHASHI, go watch this video when we're done, not right now, and you will enjoy it. You will be grinning from ear to ear. She is having so much fun while she is soaring through the air, smiling from ear to ear. and just thoroughly enjoying herself. And you can watch her teammates on the sideline doing it with her. It's so fun. So here's the tail end of it. Okay. And then you'll see them. I'll keep it going until they show the tents. Mm-hmm. There's the tens on the side. It's perfect. Not just perfect once. She did it the next competition. This is unbelievable. Okay. So why did I show you a gymnastic video in a sermon? Okay. 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 Because and at our house, Diane and I don't I think we both, well, I know I liked the individual sports before we met. I think she did too. We are Olympic watchers. We love individual sports like the X Games and gymnastics and tennis. That's just us. And we love these things. I started, and when I was a kid, I was in gymnastics. All of my kids had to start in gymnastics. And so we understand it. For a gymnast to get a 10, it's not just about catching air and landing it. While they're in the air, their feet have to be exactly together. Their toes have to maintain perfect point. They have to maintain complete body comportment throughout the entire skill, and it has to transition to the next skill perfectly. The definition of perfect here is unfathomably perfect. They are, what they're doing is absurd. And we had one daughter who went all the way to gold level in USAG, who everything she was doing was judged. So if she did a handstand, the back has to be right. The finger, even where her fingers were pointed, has to be right. Everything has to be perfect. So for this young lady to have achieved a 10 in floor exercise means every element of it was perfect. Every millimeter, every scintilla was completely perfect. This is like goosebump city. But when you look at her, she is grinning from ear to ear. She is having the time of her life bouncing around on this mat. It's a great thing to watch. Well, how much time and effort and discipline and resources did it take her to get good at that one thing? 90 seconds of time for a 22-year-old gal. She spent 15 years of her life, 18 years of her life with the strict diet, strict exercise, strict practice, strict routine, her entire life devoted to that moment in time. You could see her colleagues, her friends at the university doing the routine with her because they've all memorized everybody's routine. They've seen it so many times. She has a team around her of coaches and family who slow-mo every move that she does and say, no, wait a minute, right here at the 270 degrees of rotation, you see your legs split apart a little bit. That's a half a point deduction. So they scrutinize absolutely everything she does. Her life experience, her diet, her nutrition, and all of it to peak at the right time for competition. This is an enormous amount of work. And this is why we appreciate the individual sports. It's not to knock any of the other sports, because then if you add other people to it, it's team sports, it gets more thing. She immersed her entire life to get good at one thing. Well, Acts 17, 10 through 12. The brethren immediately sent Paul and Silas away by night to Berea. And when they arrived, they went into the synagogue of the Jews. Now, these were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, for they received the word with great eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. Therefore, many of them believed, along with a number of prominent Greek women and men. Bible study is the same, minus the athleticism. Okay? Except for the mental gymnastics. Okay? It's the same activity. You want to know one thing about the Bible, you have to put in the time. You can't watch a YouTube video for 30 minutes and walk away thinking you know something about a foreign language. You don't. You have to put in years of effort and years of study to unravel stuff. So when you get into this walk and you want to study the Bible, you have read the Bible. Remember, I said pick a Bible, read the Bible, and write stuff down. You've written stuff down. Next step, put it in order. What is the biggest thing on that paper that just bugged you to no end when you were reading that Bible? What is the thing that people were telling you that you just couldn't get out of your brain? And you take that topic and you study it. And you study it until you have exhausted every single avenue, until you master it. Not a little bit, all the way through. Use your resources. Use good resources, not just things that agree with you. How many people had to tell Caitlin Ohashi that she was doing it wrong? Do you know how hard it is to get to a mastery level in any type of a sport? You can't have any type of self-esteem. You can't have it because they're telling you you stink every practice. You're failing. You're not, if your goal is to get a 10, that means you've done it 795,000 times. That wasn't a 10, was a failure. You have to have people telling you you're wrong. And you have to be willing to be wrong and correct and correct and correct and move and hone and train and think and study forever and ever and ever until you get to the end of the road. And guess what? You're going to get to the end of the road and not have the answer a lot of times. You know, many people used to walk into the assembly and ask me, Chris, in the Genesis, it says, let there be light 4 days before there was the sun. What was the light? I don't know. But that shows that that person had studied that to the point where they couldn't find that answer because there's no answer to that question. Chris, when Cain slew Abel, he says, don't throw me out. They're going to kill me. Who are they? I don't know. There's no answer to that question, right? So people want to know answers that don't exist. Get used to it. That's Bible study right there. This is a faith. This isn't the science. We don't get to have all the answers. Yes? He's going to ask me an impossible question. Where's Paulette? Right?
All right. Okay, so Jesus rose, oh no, I'm skipping his name. His friend Lazarus. So my question is, did Lazarus die again, or because Jesus...
We don't know. Probably died.
All right.
Yeah.
I need to know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There's another one. Who were the people that came out of the grave when he died? We don't know, right? Right? Yeah. It goes on. So this is the path here. You're mulling verses, definitions, conclusions, asking more and more questions. And guess what? You have a support system. You've got the brethren. You've got people in this movement. If you go to the Friday night group, you've got hundreds of years of Bible experience on the Friday night group, which is the Don Wales's thing. You come in here, you got people, you got resources, you've got commentaries, you've got different Bible translations, you've got encyclopedias, you've got a family that's supporting you and putting up with your crazy self, walking around the house, mumbling things about Hezekiah and the temple for days and days and days, walking around the house, mumbling things to yourself, wondering things, obsessing about the Bible and things that to most people don't matter. Most of the stuff doesn't really matter, but you need that answer because you're driven and you're motivated and you're pushing and you want to know. So you have a support group. Now, here's a word of warning. Ecclesiastes 12, 9 through 14. In addition to being a wise man, the preacher also taught the people knowledge. And he pondered, searched out, and arranged many proverbs. The preacher sought to find delightful words and to write words of truth correctly. The words of wise men are like goads, and masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They are given by one shepherd. But beyond this, my son, be warned. The writing of many books is endless, and excessive devotion to books is wearying to the body. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12, 9 through 14. Sometimes you have to come up for air. Sometimes you got to give it a break. Go for a walk, play with the dog, hang out with the kids. You're obsessing over something. It's unhealthy. You've neglected your body. You've neglected your job. You have to have balance in your life. It can't just be Bible only. And I am completely condemning myself with these words because I sat in a basement for 4 years trying to figure out how did mainstream Christianity get so far away from original Christianity? Studying to a point of absurdity, neglecting the things around me. You have to have some balance. And remember, the person who wrote the words on the screen was the second wisest man on earth, second only to Yeshua. And this is the guy who built and inaugurated the first temple, is the same guy that introduced idolatry into Judea. If he can fall off the rails, so can we. Keep that in mind. You have to have some balance. It can happen to him. It can happen to all of us. False dichotomy and binary choices. Binary choices are good. This is a study method I use a lot. Okay, you come up to a crossroads, which way you going to go? I'm kind of misusing this. A false dichotomy is a logical fallacy when someone forces people to choose between two options when there could be more than two options. Okay? You either love the earth or you want to pollute it. Okay? That's how that goes all the time. And they say, well, if you don't agree with wanting to restrict any type of emission, you must want to just destroy the earth. That's not true. We don't want to destroy the earth, but we also don't want to freeze to death. So we have to have some kind of another option. But in this case, one method of studying doctrines is to follow the two paths. Is something true or not? If you say thing A is true, you march down the true road and see what happens and follow it to its conclusion and test it and prod it along the way. And then when you're done, go down the other path just to see. Test your own doctrines. Test your own beliefs. Imagine that what you hold dear and what you hold true is completely wrong. And poke it and prod it and see if it's true. Were the commandments ended at the cross? Let's use this as an example, just an easy peasy one. Okay. If we go down the no road, simple. We go down the no road, what do we see? Order. We see a gospel that is preached to people that contains righteousness and morality. We see a gospel that tells people if you used to murder, stop doing that. If you used to steal, don't do that. If you used to commit adultery, stop doing that. If you used to follow false gods and idolatry, stop doing that. So we go down the commandments were not nailed to the cross road. And we say, oh, that looks like what happened. If we go down the yes road, yes, the commandments were nailed to the cross. Nothing makes any sense. Because then Paul went into Ephesus and preached against idolatry. Well, why would he do that if it was no longer a requirement? If the commandments were nailed to the cross and we go down that road, then what we would see for a gospel would be something completely different than what happened. And this is the easy example of poking it up. As you go through, this is just one study method, and you ask questions and you answer another. In industry, this is called the 5 whys. It's in Six Sigma and change processes use this method called the 5 whys or fishbone or whatever, where you have a problem in industry and you keep asking questions until you get the answer. And you end up asking questions that goes in one direction, goes into another. There's fancy charts and graphs and whatever. But this is a valid way of doing any type of a study, is to take the doctrines that we are taught as being true today and plug them into the first century paradigm, the Gospels and the book of Acts. You can even use Josephus. I don't recommend Philo. That's the other guy. He's a little loony. But you can plug in Josephus because he has a really good, if you read the Josephus' Antiquity of the Jews, you can get a really good picture of the history of first century Judea from a non-scriptural point of view. And you can then see what that reality was and see what Christianity looked like. And you can test these things. And start sifting through all the things that keep you awake at night. Because it did me, okay? Cross-references. These are outstanding tools. Outstanding electronic Bible tools. And they do exist in print too. I think these are just the electronic versions of them. So on the left is a scripture. And then on the right is a TSK cross-references tool of everywhere whoever wrote this thinks that these come to with hot links. So on the left, this is teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law. And Yeshua said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Then on the right, it's everywhere else that this person correlated that. And then you can go down and find where it came from. This isn't exhaustive. And this is TSK is just the one that comes stock with eSword. You can get other ones. You can get better ones. And if you read the Bible in order, you will become one. You'll become your own cross-reference. This is why I keep hammering this home, is to read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, because by the time you get to the book of Matthew, you're already going to know a lot of what they're going to talk about, right? That's why the scribes and the Pharisees keep testing him. And so if you get this on your eSword or BibleWorks or BlueLetterBible.com, Bible Gateway, they all have these things. And they're free today. You have no excuse. And no excuse. The excuse is maybe you were serving the church in a different way and you're not a teacher, Chris, right? But you can click on these and it'll take you to them. So Deuteronomy 6:5 is the second line of the Shema. Deuteronomy 10:12. Look how many times this is repeated throughout. And look, even Paul talks about it. And even the book of Hebrews and 1 John. 1 John 5 is talking about the commandments and how they're not burdensome. And so you become a cross-reference. To me, this is my shtick, by the way, is studying the New Testament from the Old. Learn the Old Testament inside and out because they're always referring to the Old Testament. And then you'll understand what they're talking about. And then John 5:29 is another one that really helps elucidate when you study prophecy. Starting in 28, do not marvel at this, for an hour is coming in which all who are in the tombs will hear his voice, and will come forth those who did the good deeds to a resurrection of life, and those who committed the evil deeds to a resurrection of judgment. You'll notice it is not in all caps. My pal, the NASB 95, let me down. That should be in all caps because it's a direct quote of Daniel 12:2-3. Daniel 12:2-3, the prophet says, basically, there's two resurrections, and those who do good will, have their light will shine forth or something to that effect. So you can see where this is all quoted, and you can use these cross-references to follow the spider web to study out these themes. And this theme here, this resurrection theme, is established in the Old Testament. It's not new news. You know, when Yeshua goes to Lazarus, as Kevin just quoted, and Martha, is it Martha or Mary? They're always named Martha or Mary, aren't they? She says, he'll live again in the resurrection. She already was completely 100% vested in the resurrection of the dead based on existing knowledge before the Messiah. So the resurrection of the dead was a real thing before that. Highly recommend using cross-references in order to study, because most of the time the New Testament quotes the Old Testament. It assumes the reader already knows all those things, and you can go get a lot of information about what they're talking about. And then if you jump off of this, if you'll notice, Ezekiel is not there. Ezekiel 37 should be there as well. Talks about the first resurrection, and you can go and study that topic out as well. Next one is application of all this stuff that I've been talking about, because it's not just ethereal knowledge. And this is what we talked about in our super secret Revelation study on Monday. So secret that even I forget it exists from time to time. Revelation 17:4-5. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Now that's in all caps. And usually if something is on all caps, it's a direct line from the Old Testament. Maybe it's in a couple of different places. This is actually established in several chapters of the Old Testament. So people who study the Bible, most of Christianity studies this without the Old Testament, or just with the book of Daniel and Revelation. And they come up with these really strange conclusions. They're always trying to kind of make all of these characters into current world powers, and they're never looking at themselves as if they could be associated with the bad guys. Okay, that's generally how people study prophecy. Is I'm a Christian, I'm on the good guy side, and we're looking for some obviously sinister forces to come up out of nowhere that we can identify like a mystery novel. And I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think Christianity has a lot of culpability, and Christianity is a part of this harlotry. And that's because of the mixing of religions. And that's what harlotry means most of the time in the Bible, is talking about blending the worship of false gods with the worship of the true God. Most of the time, the Bible is not treating harlotry like a literal adultery or literal harlotry. That was almost like a 9-to-1 ratio that it's talking about blending of falsehoods. And so when you apply this to this line, this reference is, wow, that's really small. Isaiah 47:1-15, verses 7 and 8 of that say sitting as a queen and not a widow. Verse 10, this harlot character claims to be God. Okay. In Jeremiah chapters 50-51, 50 verse 20 shows Israel and Judah as sinless and united, which is a future thing. They've never been that since Solomon's day. And then verse 23 says Babylon is a horror among the nations. Verse 29 says repay her according to her deeds. Verses 6 and 7 is an exact wording of this. And so the 51:44, Bel is the god being smote even at Babylon's wall is down. Verse 45 of chapter 51 says, come out of her, my people. And so if you want to understand this, you go to, if you guys can see me pointing at the screen, these cross references down here, and you start reading. And in a couple of months, you'll have a good idea what Babylon is and how to come out of her. Couple of months, not a 30-minute YouTube video, Okay. Okay. It's going to be a while. And you have to understand, why did Israel why did Judah get thrown into Babylon? Why were they punished for getting thrown into Babylon? When they came out, what happened? And what was the change? And now why is it talking about happening again? Why is John quoting this in Revelation? And what is the application today? What is the possible application today? My challenge is, rather than looking for characters, look for the behavioral traits that gets one associated with Babylon. And what are the behavioral traits of not being associated with Babylon? What can you do today to not be associated with Babylon? Do that, and then you don't have to worry about it. Then you're good, right? Keeping the Sabbath, Sean says, that's obviously a good step in the right direction, because Isaiah 1 talks about how Israel was trying to pretend to be righteous while keeping the Sabbath and the holy days, and that's one of the reasons that they got smote. They were pretending to be righteous while not paying attention to the widow and the orphan. They were keeping the holy days and putting on airs. And Isaiah, I don't think I have timelines in this one. Timelines are good. I meant to put it in because you want to know when the prophets lived and who were they writing to in their time. Most of us read the Bible as if it's talking to us today. Very good idea to learn when did the prophets live and who were they writing to within their day, so that way you can understand the context of their writings. The prophet Isaiah lived in Israel when it was about to get smote and carted off to Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah lived while it came down, and then he went with his remnant to Egypt. Hilarious scene when he comes down, and you could almost see Israel behind him in rumble, and the guys go to him and they say, Jeremiah, okay, we repent, we get it, go talk to Yahweh, whatever he says, we'll do. So Jeremiah goes off and comes back, he says, okay, I've spoken to the Lord, and he says, we can go anywhere except Egypt. You turn the page. So we went to Egypt. and they continued their rebellion, and they continue to pour out drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven. And they continue doing, and they say to Jeremiah, what we were doing when we were pouring out these drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven, we had our sons and we had our daughters. They're not resetting their clocks back to when righteousness was established in Judea. They're setting their clocks back to the beginning of the apostasy. So the reason I can talk about this off the cuff is because of the months I spent back in the day. Some time I'm like, oh, I want to figure this out. Not mysterious knowledge, not unattainable knowledge that every one of you and anybody watching this can obtain by simply reading the Bible and following these correlations and using the available things. It's not difficult. You don't need any type of stuff like that, like resources or anything. Ezekiel identifies the harlot. Ezekiel 16, and not on there. Is it on here? Ezekiel 16 and chapter 23. Chapter 23 almost tells you exactly who the harlot is. Oh, are you going to want to read those? Okay. And Everett spoiled it on our study. Everett spoiled it at the beginning. So, academics and sources. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. For if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? We need sources. Okay. We don't know the languages. Maybe you do know one of the languages. If you do, you learned it from somebody else. Somebody else told you what the words mean. So that means you learned it from somebody who is a resource. We have to have resources. We have to learn things from somebody. We have to trust documentation. But we have to learn how to identify good sources and real sources. And that's where I talk to you try to use, legitimate academic resources with bibliographies and things of that sort. Next slide, I'm going to warn you about academics, though, because you have to take them with a grain of salt. We need to know what authoritative works are and what they aren't. That's important. On our walk, there's a lot of stuff that gets into our walk as authoritative, and it's not, and you can never get it out. And people just believe it. And I think I'm guilty of saying stuff off the cuff before that came back later that somebody believed it. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't mean for that to be a thing. And you have to correct it. There's one time I posted something on the internet that was dead wrong. And I got something got into my head that I won't repeat now because then it'll be out there again, right? But it was dead wrong. And the people called me out and said, hey, where's that? And I went, oh, you're right. And I had to take the admonishment. Wait a minute. You're right. That's not in the Bible. My apologies. And move on. And no pride in, well, I mean, I was ashamed of myself for saying something wrong. It wasn't substantively wrong or anything, but it was wrong, and I had to publicly take it. So things get out that aren't true, and we have to be very careful with what we say because people are impressionable. So we have to know studies and know stuff, and most of the bona fide stuff is made by people who don't believe like us. That's just the reality of it. I know that Richard Reeves, the author of Too Long in the Sun, his son David went to seminary school to get the doctorate or to get the pedigree. And then when you do that, you have to play by their rules. And then he came out of that astonished at how much of the information that you and I know to be true, that they know to be true in the universities where the pastors come out and don't teach it. It's a shocking information. So the flip side on academics. I am Yahweh your Elohim who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other Elohim before me. This is the flip side on academics, and this is the do not have any other gods before me thing that you guys did not see coming. Because the academics, for us, Yahweh started documenting his relationship with mankind with Genesis 1 with Moses. That's a hill I'm dying on, okay? That's not the case with the academics. The academics need stuff to study, and they almost immediately go to Ugaritic texts, Canaanite texts, and other Semitic people to inform them of how Moses would have written scripture. So you have to be careful because they're blending. They're looking at all of Canaan because there are other gods there named El. There are other gods there that look like the religion of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And that's because of Satan. Satan said that like the church lady. Because Satan wants confusion and he wants to have influence over us. And because Abraham had other kids. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob went in. The rest of the clan didn't go in. So there's still that faith is still in Mesopotamia to get blended with all these Canaanite, cult religions. So when they come back, there's these mixes, and they see temples where there's the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or something like it next to these other pagan god names, and there's all these different things that are mixed together, and that because that data exists, the academics go and study it. And some of the academics that you would know by name based their ministries on this stuff and used it to inform on how they taught the Bible. That's a problem. Because if you believe it began with Moses, then that means the Torah is completely the divine inspired word of Yahweh, and that's where we start our faith. Even though we know that there was a great period of time before that, that's where Yahweh decided to document it and start. I'm cool. I'm okay with that. If you don't believe that and you want to go with something before that, then that means Moses could be influenced by something else. That means, because Moses, remember, he was with his father-in-law was what? The priest of Midian. Means you're opening the door to Moses being a mixer, which I don't even want to say that. I don't even want to say that out loud. Okay. Yeah. Save it. Okay. Okay. If you can't, you can grab a mic now if you want. It's okay.
Well, and it could be that Jethro knew about Yahweh, because when Moses makes him a judge, no, wait, that's not
No, he just comes down as an advisor.
right. He comes down as an advisor, but he gives him, the pretty sound advice here on getting the other judges, and I mean, we don't have any way of knowing, but it could be in my mind that Jethro had knowledge of Yahweh from the past. I mean, there's no Bible, there's no verses that show that, but it's possible. And Moses, having been Hebrew, could have had influence on Jethro in the years that he had been living in Midian with him.
Yeah. Well, for me, when Moses walks along and sees a burning bush, he got introduced to Yahweh, and that's where the story starts. That's me, right? And that's where I'm going to stay. That's where I'm dropping an anchor, and I'm going to go from there. And I think it's a pretty safe place to be. All this stuff could have happened, right? And I have stuff in my brain that could have happened. Go stay there, right? Right. And I have other stuff that I think that I'm like 70% sure on. But we might talk about it around a table at a campfire someday, right? But as far as I'm concerned, it begins with Moses. There's a ton of people out there in our walk that don't think it begins with Moses. And that's a huge problem, because then you can believe anything you want to believe,
And I do believe the church begins here. The modern day church. What we know is that, it starts with Moses.
Yeah. So that's the caution on the academics. And I've been watching a lot of academic stuff lately and reading it. And they are, because if you're not looking at it from a religious point of view, if you're looking at it from a scientific point of view, an archaeological point of view, if you're just looking at it as this is an ancient society and you're digging stuff up, that's different from this is the foundation of salvation. Okay. If you're looking at it as this is the history of the people from which the God of the universe decided to establish the idea of salvation, where you're going to learn about eternal life and where the world is going to be governed with Jerusalem as its headquarters, that's a theological argument. And so the blending of theology and archaeology and history and stuff is kind of a murky type situation. Now, as far as studying other gods, this is a problem for us, as you have the Richard Reeves book, and there's the two Babylons, and there's the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? To learn about the history of Christmas, the history of Easter, the history of all these. If you look up Valentine's Day, that's actually the worst one of them. That one's really disturbing. Okay, if you look at these things and the pagan influence, we just had Halloween, which isn't even pretending it's just a satanic holiday, not even pretending to be anything but. And if you look through these things, we are forced to study the false gods and the fallen demons, angels and stuff, because we have to study this contrast. We're in Babylon right now. And when you're in Babylon, you have to identify Babylon so that you can not do things The commandment was to learn not the ways of the heathen, learn not the ways of the nation. So now we have to learn the ways, because our fathers have inherited lies, vanities, and things in which there is no profit. We have to learn, why are we doing the things we do, or we used to do, and identify it and move on. Because that verse I quoted is important. I mean, if you want to be on the right side of history, when the Messiah comes back, he says, will we find faith when he returns? He gives parables about being a good steward when the master returns. He's directly telling us that he wants us to be doing what we're supposed to be doing when he comes back. So identify that and do it. Then it doesn't matter when he comes back if you are doing what you're supposed to do. So here's the wrap up. Pick a solid, up-to-date Bible that's literal, readable, and lets you know what stuff isn't supposed to be there. And read that bad boy from cover to cover. Take your time. Take your time. Realize you've got baggage. You've got biases. Avoid logical fallacies. Study with discipline and a sober mind, and be open to being wrong, even after spending a lot of time on something. That's a crushing one. When you've constructed something and you think you've got it figured out, and 6 months later and 17 legal pads full of notes, and you're like, oh man, you gotta throw it all out. You're done. But it is what it is, and it didn't work out. Study topics with cross references wherever possible. The Bible is written and meant to be understood like that. It is written and meant to be understood as Moses, Moses, law, prophets, New Testament, in that order, and they're all referencing each other. Understand we need academic sources, but don't blindly trust academics, or anybody for that matter. Don't blindly trust anybody. But the academics are, they spend a lot of time studying stuff, and they're going to come to some strange conclusions. And no mixing. That's why we're in this. We're getting out of Babylon. So don't exit Babylon on Main Street and go wander around and end up walking back into Babylon on Elm Street. Don't end up going back where you were on a different path. Leave Babylon. And if you find you're on another path, it's like, wait a minute. Got to go another way, and you got to be on your way. Take the time, patience, and discipline, and know a topic or two inside and out. That feeling of accomplishment is great, and understand that you can't know it all. I remember going to Sukkot where back when the late Brad Scott was there. There was a couple of them who were at Sukkot who were really well known, and people were asking. They were asking Brad Scott something that another guy knew, and he had to go, "Hey, look, I don't know everything. You should probably go ask the other." Right, and that's the thing is that people, if you hear a guy who's a Torah teacher or a Bible teacher who knows something about a couple of 2 or 3 topics, that's an accomplishment. Remember the gymnast, right? The floor routine. Remember, that's an accomplishment to know 2, 3, 4 topics. That's years of work. It's not possible to know it all. Okay, you can have an opinion on it all, and you probably are going to have an opinion on it all by doing all that studying. But to know everything it's just not even a reasonable place to be. You're going to have to specialize, and that's the case. And this is just a sampling. So now, we've got some people online, we've got some people in the room. I'm curious to know your comments and what are your methods and techniques for studying the Bible.